It's been a while since we spoke. There was a war has started since, and a few other things happened. Okay. Do you have? Are you guys okay with the topics I sent?
Oh,
Okay.
good.
Okay. What do you guys think of Artemis 2? Are you excited? No, I don't think I have.
I didn't see it live scale. Well, that's way more than I was in the moon.
Right.
And
You're talking about the overall like situation, not the mission itself, because that would be really similar to the Apollo thing, where they did it by accident.
it would be similar to the Apollo thing. So it's still the moon, but the impetus is a major power struggle. The Soviet Union had the early lead in the space race, and I think it was mainly with moon lunar missions, and especially Apollo, that the United States pulled ahead. With China, I don't know if either one of you have seen videos from inside the Chinese space station.
No.
It looks miles. Have a look when you get a chance. It looks like decades ahead of the International Space Station. It's all clean and neat and organized and modern in a
Yeah,
way that
when
the
you're legacy,
I,
it's much harder to look modern than when you're building the whole
absolutely,
thing when it's new.
absolutely. So I think China is investing a lot in the space race. So it will be interesting to see what happens. And then the other very relevant development or thing that I noticed is that Elon Musk has changed his tune. And from being focused on Mars, he's now focused on the moon.
Uh, well, I
Yes. I
mean,
think
if you
long
find
term
out that
goal.
in your industry, if there are two possible missions, and one of them it seems
Uh,
that the government is going to be highly invested in, then you might change your strategy accordingly.
I think it's just a midterm goal to reach the long term. I think the long term goal of Mars is still a thing. I think it's just that he knows that he needs the midpoint as a bounce off to further the mission, and also it's an easy first target to um, test living outside of the Earth's atmosphere for. And it's just a great middle ground experimental position, start off point.
Really
I'm
good
not
for
sure.
space exploration in general, because if you have, it's first of all, it's establishing that the U.S. is at least trying to do something, and second, uh, if there is a moon base, then there is like high incentive for all the economy to focus to assist launches. There's an economy of launches, and people are incentivized to start building launch infrastructure, which could be really important for Mars also.
I actually think Mars is a distraction. I think the moon is extraordinarily valuable
Yes.
because it's much easier to get things into space from the moon than it is from Earth.
Yeah,
I
that's why
think
I'm
uh,
saying that it could be really helpful to have a moon base if you want to get to Mars.
no, not if you want to get to Mars, if you want to go to space. So the other important new thing, well, new since we've spoken anyway, from SpaceX is the focus on space-based compute centers,
Right.
running AI in space. So I think where we're going to see development in space is the moon and then around Earth. Not necessarily low Earth orbit, but somewhere in the Earth moon vicinity. And I think where the next decade is going to focus on is building industrial base on the moon, and compute centers in space in general. And the Mars sounds nice and it's exciting, but there's nothing practical that I know of that we can do on Mars as opposed to the moon and just space itself.
Isn't there climate reasons to particularly focus on Mars, as in Mars's climate?
Yeah, it's cold there.
Uh, well, there are a few things. Mars is a little easier to live on than the moon. A, because it has an atmosphere, so you can actually have like flying machines there. I think it has much more water than the moon, and it has stronger gravity than the moon. So adjustment for humans is a little easier on Mars, and it's bigger. So very long term, you have more space on Mars than you do on the moon. But for the time being, I think the moon, like for the foreseeable future, I think the moon is much more practical. It's much easier to get to, obviously. It's much faster. You can actually control things or communicate near real time, which to Mars is not possible. And as I said, you can actually use it as an industrial base in a way that much more remote, I think, in the case of Mars. So it's really hard to see what advantage Mars has over the moon anytime soon. And by the time we're capable of going to Mars, I think it might be easier to just build stations in space, habitats in space, than even on Mars.
Yeah,
So
I don't know why specifically the obsession with Mars. I agree that around the Earth's space and in the moon seems so much more, direct to me. But again, I'm not that into the field, so
Well,
don't have much
people
expertise in that sense.
and early space, like early futurism, is all about how you could replicate the Earth in some other place. And since Mars is way more Earth-like, people tend to focus on it. But now that like we're thinking more like practically, we don't have to replicate Earth. We just have to create good like, living conditions.
I agree. I think it's a lack of imagination. People with limited imagination think, oh, space, so leave Earth. We need something that is the most like Earth we can. And in the solar system, for practical, living purposes, Mars is the most Earth-like object we can think of.
Yeah.
I think that's a mistake, though. I think it's a lot. It's very practical to build a base on the moon, relatively speaking. Obviously, it's a big challenge. But then long term, uh, Elon Musk has been talking about Dyson swarm and becoming Kardashev 2 civilization. Have you seen that? The idea of a Kardashev 2
It's a little early,
civilization,
I think.
sorry?
It's a little early for that. Like a
Well,
long ways
you have
away.
to start.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, every journey starts with the first step.
Yeah.
And I think the building an industrial base on the moon, compute stations around the Earth, and combine that with Tesla's pivot towards humanoid robots that will actually run this lunar base, all of those together, and you have the beginning of the infrastructure for space. And the idea is that with enough automation, building the Dyson swarm, the Dyson swarm builds itself in a sense. So you have enough automation. Now you also have the intelligence. You have robots that do the job. And yes, it will take a long time, but you have robots build the robots. You have infinite amount of energy, or virtually infinite amount of energy,
Right.
and you have AI doing the engineering research, and you're starting the journey.
Well, I mean, that's not starting. That's very, very advanced. We're still not there. But yeah, I can
No,
see the
no.
vision.
So that's Elon Musk's vision. He described it when he um, told everybody about the TerraFab. Have you heard about the TerraFab? That's he wants to build AI computer chips in Texas. I think it's going to be in Texas, and he wants to be able to create ultimately a terawatt worth of chips a year. So you know that with AI, the unit of measurement of size has over the last year or two become energy. So you're talking about data centers in terms of how much energy they consume, and a terawatt of energy is a lot of energy. So that's his dream. I think he's investing $25 billion into building a factory that will be able to build state-of-the-art computer chips for AI. And ultimately, he wants to be able to send them to space where energy is not the limiting factor. Cooling apparently is. And he's very, well, ambitious is an understatement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
that
tends
goes
to, he's
with,
a futurist kind
yeah,
of guy. He likes to be very optimistic about futurist stuff. And also he's selling it.
yep,
So don't forget that he's always fishing for investors to invest in his stuff. So he obviously goes with the wildest take.
absolutely.
But it
And
is
talking
fun.
about selling, everybody's talking about SpaceX having an IPO this year.
Oh,
And the expectation is that it's going to be valued at, I don't know, $1.75 trillion dollars.
oh.
By far the most valuable company to ever IPO.
I was going to say that it's a bad time to go once when your competition just did a huge like moon trip, but I guess not.
So it will be interesting to see what happens with that. I think it's all very, very exciting. Artemis II in itself, I don't really, I have much more hope of an Elon Musk led venture to the moon than a NASA led venture to the moon.
No, of course. I was thinking competitor wise of Bezos, but
Yes, with Blue Origin, I'm not sure what Bezos's accomplishments were. Elon Musk is, between automated robots, artificial intelligence, and space exploration, he is covering the most important bases, I think, to create a space economy. And the potential for a space economy is, virtually infinite. You can
yes.
there are no limits to how much you can grow in space, and he has all the components in place, and he has a track record of building things, not just
Right.
selling things.
I
Yeah,
think mining and tourism are, well, the things I hear about most as far as, well, now with the database and energy aspects as well. So those four elements are the things I hear most valuable about space
I
exploration.
think I agree with Gil. I think that the cooling for data centers being the limiting factor is still a little ways away. I think Elon Musk is just looking forward with that. I
Well,
mean,
I,
Well, it's a
I,
it's
I think there's
definitely
also
cheaper
the
to
element.
cool a data center than it is to fly it to the moon.
Well, there's a good logic behind sending solar panels to gain energy in space, because they can run 24/7 and adjust their positioning so that they're always getting sun. That
Yep.
technology has gotten significantly better. It's
But then you have to
virtually
send
like
that energy up
space.
to Earth. So, man. You still need like the sky to be clear at some point. At least.
Well, no,
No,
not
no.
if you use the energy in space,
Yeah.
right?
If you use the energy in
So,
space, but right now we aren't using that in
well,
space. Oh, you're
well, that's
saying
where the
okay,
compute
so
in
I have
space
to
comes.
counter also the energy prices when I'm talking about. I still think that shipping them to the moon is more expensive than doing it on Earth. But yes, I see what you're saying.
Well, a part of the what makes okay, so the only way that you could financially make it executionable, like repetitive, is if you can reuse the equipment. So that was the space tongue things, big deal about that. And then also, if you can commercialize it and then make it make the costs of tourism basically cover some of the costs of the missions. So if it's reusable equipment and then space tourism picks up, I think you can advance it much more quickly.
What was the thing
I,
that Elon did with the vacuum tube, the Underground Railroad vacuum tube,
oh, the Boring Company.
the Boring Company?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, that was silly. Yeah,
that was
that
silly,
that went
but
nowhere.
it is the start of launch assist mega project
Yep.
possible. He could use that
Well,
to
yes.
like launch things.
So
I think that like the main thing, the most exciting thing about Artemis 2 would be how much it would motivate Elon to do stuff.
I think it all goes together, and Elon will definitely. I think SpaceX is part of the next step in the Artemis program. As I understand it, the most expensive thing about space is sending mass outside Earth
Yeah,
because of Earth's gravity. If you have a functioning factory on the moon, and the moon has all the uh, has a lot of elements, has aluminum, silicon, oxygen in in large quantities. I think it's a little poorer in nitrogen and hydrogen. But the point is, from the moon, you don't need to send a rocket. You can have a can't remember the name of this thing,
The space
but
elevator?
basically you use a no, not elevator, a space launch. So you have a rail that accelerates using electricity, and it can accelerate it fast enough to escape the moon's gravity. So now you can send tons and tons and tons of stuff, of matter, into space at a much, much lower cost. And that means you can start building things in space. Now, the sophisticated things, let's say computer chips, you might still need to build on Earth, but they're not very heavy. On the other hand, if you want to build like the body of a space station and the shielding and the heavy stuff you get from the moon.
Hmm.
And I think that's the combination that makes building things in space more economic. And then the killer app used to be, Gil, you said tourism, but I think the pivot that Elon has made is to view computing as the killer app of space, at least in the short term, rather than tourism. The amounts of money that go into AI is sort of eye-watering, right? It's the
yeah,
hundreds of billions. The only thing bigger than the amount of money that goes into AI is, you know,
The amount of
Trump's
energy.
new defense budget.
Yeah.
Um, so, and by the way, that might be a good pivot to the war, because one of the risks is that a lot of the money that was going to be invested in AI ultimately came from sovereign wealth funds from the Gulf.
right.
And if the war escalates and there is a lot of damage to infrastructure for Gulf states, they might not be able to afford to invest as much in AI. They might need to invest some of that money domestically to rebuild, and that could slow things down, but only temporarily.
I
Wouldn't be
okay,
worried.
so
There's so much money going into it, and I would like it to go slowly so I can adapt.
I think most people would
Nobody's
like it
waiting
to
for you,
go
Bar.
slowly so we can adapt, except for, but actually, except for Trump, who wants it to go very fast because it's the only level of growth that could possibly save the US from debt. But I do want to say about, okay, so do think that's a good pivot to the war. I will say that two last things about Artemis II. I do think it's, I saw once a video by Smarter Every Day. I don't know if you're familiar with the channel. He gave a speech to NASA, and it was not too long ago. I think like 5 years ish ago, and it was about Artemis II, I believe, and the intent to go on this trip, and they basically it was kind of attempted to be a wake up call about how they don't seem to be actually achieving any of their goals. They're going incredibly slow. They're wasting a lot of money, and they were incompetent on many levels, especially considering people have already been to the moon and they just weren't using that information. So hopefully think that a lot of the waste and maybe political correctness that held back NASA got caught off when Trump came in and destroyed the DEI agenda from many governmental institutions. So hopefully things have changed since. I used to be less into the idea of using a lot of government money for these sorts of seemingly just a matter of showboating rather than genuine like a practical achievement. But I do think a lot of practical achievement can come out of it, especially with people like Elon Musk and other people who like him who want to see space as the new frontier. And then, so I hopefully the NASA is less disorganized than it was when I saw that video. But the war. Okay, so I did have something to say about the investments from Middle Eastern countries. I think a lot of the dynamic there is, well, the US was the world policeman for a long time, and it just can't afford to be anymore. And it sent off the cost of being the world policeman to the rest of the countries in the world via inflation. Everything's going to be coming down very hard very soon for other countries first, because uh, the dollar will probably be the reserve currency until its literal downfall. I don't see anything replacing it before things come crashing down, because you just can't fix something like that until it's broken. It's too much of an investment. I don't think you can trust any other currency or anything like that until it all comes crashing down and you have to leave. You have to abandon the dollar. So, anyways, the world order is changing around, and people are going to have to start doing their own policing around their own areas. And Trump kind of gave them the in to do that by doing most of the legwork as far as destroying the Iranian regime. If they can actually pick up from where he left off and take control of that region, this might still come out in a positive way. But um, what do you guys think? Is there a positive outcome from this, or was this one big mistake? No turning back. What do you guys think?
Bar. I think my opinion is much more predictable,
Yes.
but I'm very curious to hear yours.
Yes. For me, the upside of regime change in Iran is just really, really huge. I can't
Uh huh.
help but be distracted by how awesome it would be if the Iranian regime changed. I
Right.
am probably overly optimistic, both about the regime changing and about how awesome it would be once it changed. But I
Okay.
do think that in terms of the way America is managed as the global hegemon, I think that most of the time I was predicting that it would stop being the global hegemon by the time as I'm alive. But I think that changing from being like the pure global hegemon from like I control everything and fund everything to more of I'm the global hegemon for you guys. This is a business. You have to pay me for being the global hegemon. That could make it more maintainable to the point where I don't see it ending, and unless like radical life extension, which would also be really cool. So I think that taking out the Iranian regime is going to take to give the like to make Middle Eastern security arrangements much more price effective. Like you'll have like a fair alliance, and two alliances, and they balance each other out, like the European concert of powers or something. It makes it much more sustainable and allows the U.S. to leave with much more control, but without as much investment.
Yeah, I'm it I think this is all like living in Fantasyland, right? Because I guess on the 27th of February, you could have more legitimately think that maybe something will happen to the Iranian regime. It seems to me like this war is worse than a crime. It's a mistake, or something to that effect. So it's counterproductive. If you think of all the reasons why you were hoping that the regime in Iran will change, and by the way, when people talk about changing the regime, they very often, and I hope that's not the case with you, only contemplate the old regime that they want to be removed and do not contemplate what it's going to be replaced by. And very often, especially in the Middle East, the old regime is replaced by something much worse. And that, I think, is also what's going on in Iran. Trump has been heard saying that the regime has actually been changed because it's a different Khamenei now that's in charge. But if you think about what worried you about the old regime, it's that it was extremist, that it was a risk of it developing nuclear weapons, that it was a risk of it throwing its weight around the region and destabilize the region. All of those points, and probably a few others if I stop to think about it, are now going to be much worse because of the war, not better.
Why
So
is
a
that? Why do you say
war,
that? Why would you assume that they would be worse?
well, let's think about it. From first of all, in terms of demeanor, by all accounts, the new if the old regime was controlled by the old Khamenei, who was an old man and a very cautious man, and the people around him, or the people that Israel assassinated, were all relatively mature, relatively sort of older people that were very cautious. Remember, Iran has never attacked any of its neighbors. Iran hasn't, well, kept saying at least, we can discuss it, kept saying that it doesn't want to develop a nuclear weapon, has come to the negotiations with the United States offering to effectively get rid of its highly enriched uranium,
That's
agreed.
not the impression I got from. That's the exact opposite of what they came to the negotiations with. Is
No, no, no. They said in negotiations,
That
they
is being
said they're
confused
not willing.
because they also lie.
Well, no, it's what they agreed to. No, no, actually, the Iranians are not the ones who are lying. But they
we don't know that.
agreed to go back. What they didn't agree to is give up all enrichment capabilities. That was their red line. But they've agreed with Obama to only enrich to 3 or 4% and to have inspections that confirmed that. They only want up to 60%, which they were allowed to under that agreement if and when the United States left the agreement. So Trump, in his wisdom in the first term, left the agreement, and that opened the door to Iran, both legally and in terms of incentive, to enrich to 60%. Now that old guard has been replaced by all accounts, leaders of the Republican Guard, Revolutionary Guard, who are much more militant, much more extreme, younger. I think the prohibition against development of nuclear weapon is much more likely to be removed now, both because you don't have the old Ayatollah throwing his weight in the way that he did before, and because it was made very, very clear to Iran that the only way that it can protect itself against future attacks is by having a nuclear weapon. If you just compare Libya, that gave up its nuclear program, with North Korea that didn't, and ask which of them is more stable vis-a-vis external attacks, I think the motivation for Iran to build a nuclear weapon now is much greater. They still have enough fissile material, a highly enriched material, to build a weapon. From here to a weapon, they need to do some work, but it's a much smaller scale work. It's work that can be done in a laboratory under a very deep mountain, as opposed to the huge centrifuge operations that they needed to get the enriched uranium in the first place. Second, or next, is that Iran has now took control over the Strait of Hormuz, and they are very, very clear that they have no intention of giving that up, even when the war ends. So there is a new status quo as far as Iran is concerned, and I don't see any power that can change that, which is that Iran is going to treat the Strait of Hormuz the way Egypt treats the Suez Canal or the United States treats the Panama Canal. It's their own backwaters. They're going to decide. They're not going to close it. That would be bad for business. But they are going to decide who passes and who doesn't, and they're going to collect toll from any ship that passes there. So Iran is emerging from this war with the regime much stronger. In January, the regime seemed on the verge of collapse. Now, by all accounts, the regime is much more strongly entrenched,
We lost him. The
much
Mossad got
more
him.
extreme, much more militant, having made the step to take over the Strait of Hormuz, and much more likely to develop nuclear weapon. So it's an own goal, unforced error on every single important category, and they're showing that they have more ballistic missiles than Israel has interceptors. You notice that the last few days or last week or so, more and more Iranian missiles are actually hitting the ground in Israel. And the accounts that I hear is that Israel is almost out of Arrow missiles, so it has to use Iron Dome and other sort of lower interception tools. And the Iranians have many more missiles than anybody expected. They're able to repair their launchers and their tunnel entrances and so on. So it looks like they have more breathing room. They're getting real-time intelligence from Russia and probably China. They're getting technology from China and possibly nuclear technology from North Korea. So in every possible way, I think the situation is worse from the perspective of the people that were worried about the Iranian regime before this war.
I think that you're neglecting some really important aspects here.
Okay.
Like, for instance, you're saying that they have no choice but to have nuclear weapons as deterrent, as if there weren't several other things that they could have done to prevent the war, which I think would be
Oh, I don't say
pretty.
there's no. I don't know what they could have done to prevent the war, because obviously the when dogs want to give in, they lie on their back and expose their tummy
Yeah,
because it's the most sensitive thing. And yes, Iran could have done that, and then probably maybe they would have been allowed to live, but more likely that would have
saying
caused
like
Israel
not
to
funding
take advantage.
Hamas and Hezbollah is like this big deal. Like it's this horrible act of submission. It's just not funding terror. It's very simple.
No, 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 no. That's not the main issue.
I know it's the main
Funding.
issue. I'm just saying that there is lots of ways. There's a big road to ahead before you can say, "Oh, I've exhausted all the options. All I have is nuclear."
Hold on. What the major demands from the United States? If you look at the list of demands, they include give up your nuclear material and any ability to create to uh, to process more uranium,
Mhm.
and give up your long-term missile program.
Okay.
So basically,
And
what you're
stop
telling
funding your
the,
uh, terrorist groups in the
that's
region.
third on the list. Exactly. So what the United States and Israel are telling Iran is give up any power that you have to resist us.
To kill
So
us.
lie on your tummy, lie on your back, and show us your tummy.
Just try not to kill us.
That's the
Just
only way.
commit to not killing us, and then
Oh,
and
no,
then
no,
we
no, no, no.
can and then we just don't
Sorry.
attack you. And
The Iranians are willing to commit to not killing you. The
Why
Iranians
would
are
you?
willing to.
say we won't
Literally
kill you.
funding. They're
But
literally funding people who are attempting to kill them. I mean,
the, they
how is that a
funding
They're
sign of
funding.
America and
peaceful?
death to Israel ever. There's a
Sorry.
clock, the timeout clock for Israel
Well,
in their central
okay, one
square.
second.
Hold on.
I don't think
So
people. I
let's.
don't think people like take the clock seriously. But okay, let's. Okay, I want to
I'm
go
just
over some
saying
of the
that
points you
you could
mentioned.
have done a better job of convincing me you're not trying to kill me. Is all I'm saying.
I of course agree,
But
but people don't take them seriously. Okay, so first of all, I believe they already had control of the straits. So saying that they took control because of the war is, I don't know, seems
they have a
it
latent
they
control. They
showed
haven't imposed conditions. Sorry, they haven't imposed conditions. They haven't blocked the straits. They had the potential to do that, but they haven't realized that potential until now. And now, not only have they realized the potential, so they effectively decide who passes and who doesn't, but they are now saying they're going to continue to do that indefinitely.
Wait,
So,
sure
I can
you
and it
can't
seems like,
continue to do anything indefinitely, first of all.
I
But
just want to
saying
stop
that
you
they took control.
before this goes ahead. I wanted to remember that the main fallacy of the way that you're interpreting this whole situation is conflating motivations with capabilities. The Mojtaba may be way more flamboyant than his father, but he doesn't have as much rockets. He doesn't have the talented generals. He may have the crazy generals, but not the talented ones. And those are the ones that are a problem.
okay, right. So let's explore that. That's a good point. Obviously, Iran has fewer missiles now than it did on the 27th of February, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, Israel has many fewer interceptors. Israel and the United States have many fewer interceptors, right? So both sides are weaker as far as the missile versus interceptor thing goes. They
One
have as
one
much.
side is significantly weaker, considering the amount of damage. Just because, from a pure power perspective, you would admit that. Okay, okay. Ukraine is significantly weaker now than it was in the beginning of the war with Russia. But I will give you that their real world experience with modern warfare with drones and their ability to create drones has improved incredibly, so that now that people from different countries around the world are inviting Ukrainian representatives in order to teach them how to combat in the modern world. So, in that sense, Iran got a lot more information, but they were so incredibly outpowered that the level of destruction that Iran got is nothing compared to the dwindling of Israel's stock.
Right. Why does it matter? What matters is what you were worried about, what everybody was worried about, is Iran's ability to inflict pain on Israel. Iran never had the ability
Well,
to destroy Israel.
n- n-
And Bar, I laughed earlier because you're absolutely right to distinguish between motivation and capabilities. Iran might be motivated to destroy Israel, but Iran never does and never will have the ability to destroy Israel. However, in terms of Iran's ability to inflict pain, right, that ability is now stronger than it was
it
before because
definitely
now
is not.
more Iranian Sorry?
It definitely is not. There is no way that it's stronger right now. That right now are maybe the Israeli ability to defend is weaker. That is that if
But that's the
Look,
point.
look,
But
you're
that's the
you're
point,
you're
right?
making
The
the same
ability to
mistake. You're making the same mistake that you suggested that we make when we
uh-huh.
don't think of the alternative as a possibility. So, sure, we Iran could have been okay. We don't know that Iran was in fact listening to the agreement with Obama. In fact, there was intel suggesting that they weren't, and that's part of the reason why Trump said that was a stupid idea, because there wasn't the feedback mechanism where you could see whether or not they were actually committed to their side of the agreement. Second of all,
Inspectors going there. What do
they
you mean?
were
There were
gathering
inspectors that,
power
yeah,
over time.
uh-huh,
I'm sorry, I
yeah,
couldn't hear you. They were gathering
okay.
power over time.
Hmm.
They were building up their capabilities, and this was proven by the fact that they had these longer range missiles, and that they were using them, and they were had missiles already aimed at all their neighboring countries. You were suggesting that Iran never attacked any of their neighboring countries, and sure, you
Yep,
might say they only attacked after America attacked them, but the fact that
yeah.
they had it pointed means that they were willing to use these tactics. It's just that it wasn't in their best interest at the time, but they were willing to do it at a point when it was at their advantage. So
No, no,
to
no, it's a
suggest that it would
defense.
never be in their advantage unless America attacked them is, I think it's
Gil,
ignorant of the human nature element of just wanting more power and influence and to
but the
show
Iranian
your.
Revolution, I'm sorry. In the 47 years since the Iranian Revolution, right? Iran has been attacked, but it has never initiated attack itself. You can argue that it, organizations that Iran supported financially have initiated attack, but Iran itself has never attacked any of its neighbors in 47 years,
wait,
despite being much
is
stronger than
Hezbollah
it is
Iran?
now. No.
Do we recognize that right now Iranians are directly controlling Hezbollah units?
Maybe, but right now is different because right now, if to the extent that Hezbollah is now controlled directly by Iran, it's Israel's fault, or thanks to
Yeah,
Israel that
because
that
they
was the
killed the
case. Hezbollah
Hezbollah
was
commanders. Yes.
just a second. Hezbollah was much more independent. And second, to the extent that you identify Hezbollah with Iran, then you have to recognize that Hezbollah's attacks on Israel are part of Iranian retaliation for a war that was initiated by Israel.
Yes.
So Iran has built its what it kept saying all along is that it's building its force as a defense, as a defensive shield. So yes, of course it has missiles aimed. You think the United States doesn't have missiles aimed at, Moscow? That doesn't mean that it's going to attack Moscow. It means that it wants to keep that as an option. Israel has nuclear weapons. I'm sure those are aimed at various Arab capitals and other Arab cities. The point is, Iran, yes, built a conventional power, but it built a conventional power to be used defensively, and it has used it defensively in this instance.
Wait. Hezbollah attacked
This
Israel
is a
on
response.
October 8th, before Israel responded. Was that
Sorry,
defense?
I'm sure it wasn't before Israel responded, but that Hezbollah wasn't controlled by Iran at the time. You're saying right now Iranian officers are
Okay,
controlling
that's
Hezbollah,
true.
but
That's
that's
true. The
because
Iranian officers
Israel
weren't
killed
controlling
Nasrallah.
Hezbollah directly at the time, but Hezbollah
No.
is subject to Iran in such a way that it is capable of getting to a situation where Iranian officers are controlling Hezbollah. We can't pretend that
No,
Hezbollah is
after
different.
Israel
Sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
no. After Israel decapitated Hezbollah, after there was a power vacuum at the top of Hezbollah, Nasrallah was very powerful, was very independent. He was respected by the Iranians. He was his own man. He wasn't doing whatever Iran told him. During the 12-day war, even, Hezbollah didn't join Iran, but only now, after the power vacuum at the top of Hezbollah that was created by Israel, Iran has much more direct control over Hezbollah, and even now I'm not sure how far they are able to push it. But Hezbollah is different from Iran. It's a different organization. It's supported in the same way that the United States supports Israel and Egypt and many, many other countries. Would you say that Egypt is a puppet of the United States just because the
The
United States pays
Egyptians
it
believe
billions of
that the
dollars a
leader of
year?
the United States is God representative on earth. They're
Sorry,
they're all
what does that
12
have
birds
anything to
there,
do with?
and I do
Is
believe
Brazil subject to the? Do you think that the Brazilians are subject to the Vatican because they believe that the Pope
That
is
is a
their
genuine
leader
threat.
on
Yeah.
earth?
are Brazilians
So
carrying out like Deus Volt attacks.
no, they're two separate things. There is a political alignment between Hezbollah and Iran, and there's
And a
no doubt
funding
about that.
alignment and a very deep ideological alignment and a religious alignment.
So I wouldn't say
Yes.
that's a fair comparison because Islam is the law and the religion are like intertwined in a way that isn't true for Christianity.
They're
Not
also much
anymore.
more militant
Um,
compared to Christianity.
yes. So here's the point. His Hezbollah certainly on October 8th had very independent decision-making capabilities. The fact
Or
that it
that's
was
what Iran
supported.
says, so they're not culpable for what happened.
No, that's what intelligence sources say. That's the case. As I said, Nasrallah was very independent, was a very very powerful leader. He was respected, and he obviously was somewhat. To compare the relation between Hezbollah and Iran to the relation between Israel and the United States, would you say that the United States controls Israel,
Yes.
A little bit,
or is
yeah,
it the other way around?
a little bit. I mean, if Israel does something really bad, like for instance attack Qatar, then the United States comes and forces Israel to apologize.
No. But it's the other way around. Can the United States force Israel to go to war? Do you
Yeah.
think Israel will send troops? Do you think Israel will send soldiers to help the United States if it ever fights against China?
Yeah.
If the United States put its foot down, but Israeli troops are not what Israel's useful for. It's silly to ask for troops from Israel because they just that's not
But the
what you
thing is
ask
that they
Israel for
would.
as far as
Israel
what it
doesn't.
has.
Israel considers the relationship with America very, very important. We don't
Yes.
believe that Trump is God's messenger on earth, but we would do a lot to help America, to keep America
Well,
safe.
I don't know. If you think about, don't think about Trump. Okay, Trump is a very odd bird because on the one hand he's much more in the Israeli Jewish pocket than any previous president, and on the other hand he can actually put his foot down, and maybe those things go together. However, think about the relation between Israel and the United States when Obama was in charge. Do you think Israel did everything Obama wanted? Or do you think about the relation between Israel and the United States earlier on when during the I don't know Bush senior years when Israel defied the United States? I think it's much more complex than that.
I think
But
similar to the relationship between the federal government and the different states, they get a lot of their money from them and they need require them in order to keep surviving kind of thing.
I,
yes,
I
but there's
I just can't get
yeah.
over this. No, Hezbollah is their puppet. They do have some autonomy. They have the decision making capabilities, but they're obviously an Iranian puppet.
At what point did
Um,
they become an Iranian puppet is the point that is trying to make.
well,
When they
I
were
think they're
formed.
much more. I think they're much more subject to Iranian influence now than they were in 2023.
That's true.
Okay,
That's
Okay.
true, but
so
Okay. So
you're
one
not
second.
going. I don't. I hope that you're not implying that Israel made a mistake by killing Hezbollah leadership because now Iran controls them. Because obviously that would be silly.
well, I mean, you need to decide, make your mind up. Is it good that Iran controls Hezbollah, or is it bad?
I think it just proves that Iran is very close with Hezbollah. I think that
Well,
it's
it is
good
close, and
because at least Hezbollah isn't controlling Hezbollah, which is nice.
I think
anyway,
I
the,
think Bar's point is that the Iran is a force in the region that is actually affecting its neighbors in a negative sense, in a way that you weren't giving enough credit to because you were saying Iran was peaceful and only defensive.
Hold on. Such as which of its neighbors did Iran negatively impact?
Well, I mean,
Well,
Remember,
everybody has knowledge for
Israel is not Iran's neighbor.
right.
it's
So
in
when
the
I say
region.
neighbors, I had in mind Gulf states.
Right.
So what did Iran do to damage Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, and
They
Bahrain
sent
and
missiles to
Qatar
them, didn't they?
before it
Defeated.
was
I
attacked?
noticed that you didn't mention
Sorry?
Yemen for some reason.
No, I didn't mention Yemen. The reason I didn't mention Yemen is because I don't think what Saudi Arabia did in Yemen is is a point in your favor in the in
I'm not
the
talking about what
bloc
Saudi Arabia did. I'm talking
competition.
about what Iran did.
Well, Iran helped Yemen fight against the genocidal attacks of Saudi Arabia. But let's not go there, right? I think Iran is certainly views itself as a regional power, but much like China views itself as a regional power, both Iran and China are example of countries that have, by and large, built mainly defensive force and never actually used it to attack their neighbors, unlike some other countries that we can think
Yeah,
of,
I
right?
disagree completely.
again, you're
I think
conflating your
you're
goodwill with
underestimating soft power comparatively to hard
yeah,
power. I mean,
yeah.
sure, America. So
Sorry?
Dominating.
you completely disregard soft power when it comes to internal matters and external matters. So the way the left uses soft power inside the US, you don't treat it as though it's an existential problem. And the way China treats soft power around the world, you don't treat it as though it's an existent issue at all.
Sorry, I think I'm I think China exerts soft power in a positive way. So I'm not sure I understand your point. I think China exerts soft power by helping countries develop, by giving them loan, by helping them build
Do
infrastructure,
you also
by
agree that they exert
exporting.
soft power by funding communism, like by
What
advocating
communism? Sorry,
communism?
sorry. How is China selectively like? Let's contrast. The Soviet Union supported, I don't know, Cuba and
They don't
North
support it
Korea and
politically. They
so.
support it like culturally.
But what is communist about Chinese culture, other than the
I'm
name?
not saying the Chinese culture is communist. I'm saying that
Okay,
they're supporting, like financially, they're funding all sorts of communist propaganda.
such as I've never seen any communist. When you say communist, do you just mean anything that's associated with the Communist Party of China is by definition
No,
communist,
no,
or do you
no.
mean
I
communist as
mean,
in okay,
I mean communist. I mean like
such as I've never seen
intersectional
anything.
cultural Marxism.
Ch- Yeah, but China is not culturally Marxist. China is not economically Marxist.
No,
China is not
because
Marxist in
they
anything but
don't
name.
want to. Cultural Marxism isn't healthy for a society. That's why they advocated for the West, not for China.
I've never seen China advocate cultural Marxism in the West.
Uh-huh.
Where is that coming from?
Okay, well,
That's
I guess I
completely
don't
news
have
to
enough
me.
examples, but I'm pretty sure that's the case.
Well,
I
I don't
say
think I can think of a single example of that. So,
that's why it's soft power. It's very indirect and hard to put your finger on. It's more a Fox style of governing. But
I
there
just
was
like to note
are you
that
there was this
you're giving credit to China and Iran for not attacking, but you're conflating again goodwill with capability. They don't attack because they know that if they attack, they'll get America.
you know that because you read their minds. But I'm not suggesting that the United States, you know,
Are Americans like
close its military.
are white people like fundamentally evil?
No,
Then why do they behave in the? Why are Americans so bad and Chinese are so good and Iranians are so good?
I think the United States has chosen, power corrupts. The United States after the Second World War, and especially after the fall of the Soviet Union, found itself very, very powerful, and internal forces within the United States pushed to express that power in militaristic ways,
Okay, okay.
which is
What
unfortunate and not
once
inevitable.
if American power wanes and Chinese
Yeah,
power grows, improves,
grew. Yeah.
uh, would they not be corrupted and then be tempted to act in a bad way, just like Americans?
I think if China became a singular world hegemon, that would probably be a bad idea. I think the world is better if the United States restricted itself to being a regional power, with the same with China and the same with the European Union, so that there was no single global power, but rather you naturally have regional powers. I think China, I think the United States can certainly defend itself, so I'm not very worried about the defense of the United States. I don't think it would be a good idea for China to be a global empire in the same way that the United States is, but I'm definitely not afraid of a world in which China is a regional power, as is the United States, Russia, Western Europe, and so on.
That's actually an interesting point. I think that maybe this is just projection, but I think that part of the reason why Trump took the opportunity to attack Iran now was because he does want to secede from the world. He wants to become more of a regional power, and he wants to let Israel become more of a regional power in the Middle East. And in order to do that, you have to weaken the current. One of the biggest elements that are back this Abraham Accord alliance from becoming the power in the region. So he has to take this opportunity now, and then now he's destroyed Iran. Okay, so he's destroyed a lot of their military capabilities, maybe even. I mean, I don't know what percentage to give it, but no, I can't speak to that. Okay, but anyways, he's destroyed a lot of their military capabilities, and he's telling the people in the region to say, now, you have to take control of this area. I can't keep policing it. You have to take control of it. I'm going to go back to my region and take control of it. You take control of this area. I've weakened it for you. Go ahead and do that.
That, at the very least, assumes that Iran is now a less dangerous country after this war than it was before.
Mhm.
And I think that's a mistake.
Why is
It
that a mistake?
might be for the reasons that I outlined before. I think all the damage to Iran can be rebuilt,
Okay.
so they can restock and so on. So you could adopt a strategy of mowing the lawn. So saying every year we need to go out and have a few weeks war with Iran to, you know, to reduce its power. Remember that a year ago, in a 12-day war, people said exactly the same thing. Iran is now much, much weaker. We've done that. And then a year later, it turns out that not only do we need to go in again, but Iran is more powerful than we
No, no,
thought.
no, no, no.
Where do you
I
think?
think that's an unfair statement. A lot of people say it, and it's just not true. They are weaker in the sense that those facilities were destroyed. They were still enriching uranium, and they still wanted to get nuclear heads, but they also got more intel of their longer range missiles. That was why we Iran the US wanted to destroy its other military capabilities. It destroyed those specific facilities. It did destroy them. Those facilities are gone. They can't be used, but that doesn't mean they were completely uh, incapable of building up. And I agree with you. It was kind of mowing the lawn, but now he's raking it and spreading ashes as well. So it's more difficult for it to grow in the future.
I just want
Do
to
you
correct a
think?
little bit, a small thing there.
Yeah,
That the objective of the 12-day war was eliminating the active nuclear threat, and the incentive for this war are supposedly to reduce their air defenses to a point where they aren't immune in future development of nuclear threats. But more and lots of also the things about conceiving them more of a danger now than they were back then is because they were lying. Like things like their long range missiles to places like Diego Garcia, or they had more rockets than previously thought. That's not because the 12-way war wasn't effective. It was because it turns out they were stronger than we thought. But on the other hand, it also turns out
Yeah.
that they were much weaker than we thought. We did the 12-day war
Ah.
and we were okay. It's a great power, but we had a little fight with them and we were fine. And then they had several weeks of tens of thousands of protesters dying to destroy the regime. Obviously, this regime is people are begging for it to be put down. So obviously, it's a good thing that we have to go to war because we have to take down this evil regime, and also it turns out that we can handle it. So there's not going to be a big price for this war. So let's just finish the whole thing off, and then give our
All right.
allies in
I
the
will say
region the ability to control the
So
region and us to take the
what
foot off the gas.
I
okay.
don't
So
think
we're
they're stronger in the sense that they have the experience now, the way Ukraine might be supposedly stronger now, even though it's lost at this point probably hundreds of thousands of m- men, I guess, and it's got incredible levels of damage to their facilities, and they've racked up a lot of debt, but they've gained a lot of military experience, and they've built up a capability to create drone warfare and lots of experience in that. So in that sense, Iran might be stronger, but they've destroyed all of their facilities, and I think they pretty much killed everyone that could have learned on how to build up on this. Well, not everyone, but they killed up a good amount of people that would have learned how to use this experience in a to become stronger. So I don't see how they would become stronger. Maybe they gain experience, maybe they gained more influence. I mean,
Just
literally,
FYI,
explain
he's
to
not
me
saying that
what
they've become
makes them
stronger.
stronger now that they were before.
He isn't saying that they've become stronger. He's saying that they've become meaner. But now they're much weaker.
well.
But he thinks that
No, no,
they
no.
were
He
so
said
nice to
stronger.
begin with
He also said more
that
extreme,
they've been.
which I don't see. Okay, you. There's reason to believe why they would become more extreme. There's not reason to believe why they become stronger. But more extreme. That's also in a question mark. We just don't know. We don't know who's left alive. We don't know who's in control. We just don't know.
Let me, so because we're almost at the, well, we're at the hour mark, let me ask both of you to tell me how you think the war is going to proceed. So, Bar, you sounded very optimistic, right? Because, if you want something hard enough, it's going to happen, and you really want the Iranian regime to fall.
Yes.
But realistically, where, and this is recorded, so we'll be able to come back to it, where do you see the war going over the next few weeks or longer term?
Uh, What's going to happen is that, okay, for option one, this entire Trump being frustrated and trying to negotiate with Iran is completely fake. He's actually just letting them put their guards down. Mujtaba would be assassinated. The paratroop Pahlavi into the first city and tell everybody to come away. Iranian Revolution, Pahlavi, democracy forever, 1,000 year Reich. Second option is Trump actually gives the negotiation, comes to an agreement with Iran. They have a nuclear deal, but Bibi said no. We're keeping the fight going, and
Hello?
America drops out, and
Lost you
Israel
there.
keeps. Oh, where did we lose me?
Sorry, we lost you there. So the first option is the dream scenario in which a monarch declares democracy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Second option
What's so?
is
Yeah.
America drops out, like Trump is hinting right now, but Israel keeps
Uh-huh.
up the war, and that's even
Uh-huh.
better because when they collapse the regime, that Israel gets all the credit and Iran is Israel's best friend and we remain best friends forever. Third
Okay.
option, probably the most what I think that will probably happen. Trump negotiates, comes to an agreement with Iran. Israel keeps fighting for a few days, but then it's not popular enough to keep up, and we just have this war happen exactly the same again in 10 years.
10 years.
Okay.
You're
That
very
seems
optimistic. Last time it didn't last a year, so you think now it's going to last
I
longer.
told you the reason that it lasted 1 year is because Iran seems to have projected so much weakness in that war that it was too tempting to give up the opportunity.
I didn't understand that. Iran was
Iran
appeared to be so weak.
appeared to be so weak in the 12-day war that it's too tempting
Uh-huh.
to attack again.
Right, so hold on. So is the reason to attack Iran because it's strong and dangerous, or because it's weak and it's tempting? I'm a little confused.
It's both of them.
no, no,
It's
no. It's because it's weak and it's tempting, and it's suggesting to us that it wants to become strong, and its long-term goals are actually frightening because they are actually negative towards the West.
I mean,
Yes, but Bar earlier talked about the difference between motivation and capabilities.
yes,
If it's weak,
weakness.
if it's weak,
There are two different kinds of weakness here that we're conflating. Okay,
okay,
there's
maybe
weakness
that's
in
why I'm
terms of
confused.
bombs that they can send to Israel, and there's weakness in terms of the ability to control the Iranian people. And
Right.
my favorite scenario is a very strong Iran that is in deep and beautiful peace with Israel. That's the best one. If it's
Absolutely. Mine too. So,
if
but
it's strong,
uh,
if it can
yeah,
send lots of rockets to Israel, but it also hates Israel and the people of Iran hate it. So all we need to do is tip it over a little bit and becomes our strong ally. That's the best one. That's the most
right,
tempting to attack.
right. But what I heard from you, and maybe I'm wrong about that, is kind of what you would like to happen. But I'm asking you what you think is the likely scenario.
That's the
I
third
You
said
think the
the
scenario
likely
likely
he mentioned.
scenario?
scenario, and it's I'm being a little. I think I said the likely scenario. I said Trump gives in, makes an agreement with Iran. Israel keeps fighting for a few days, but then gives in also, and we have the same war in 10 years. That's not optimistic. I'm not happy about that.
Right. What do you think, Gil? And
So
then I'll tell you what I think, and we'll
Bar's
see.
third option seems reasonable to me, realistic. I will say that
Uh,
my optimistic take is actually I don't think Israel can go much further. Obviously, Bar, you're there, so you would know better what the situation on the ground is. But I'm getting the impression that the war is really starting to grate on the citizenry in a way that's untenable to continue for much longer. And Iran is very far away, so I don't think that's realistic. So my ideal solution would be Trump backs out, becomes internally focused, and then powers in the region, I'm thinking more like Europe and Saudi Arabia probably, try to take more of the lead in controlling whatever rises as the
Did you say
new
Europe?
regime now that everyone is dead. So hopefully someone that sees that Iran is very weak right now, and even if he is internally very angry and resentful about the situation, at least externally has to create relationships with locals in the region. So I'm thinking maybe someone more friendly towards Saudi Arabia, and maybe through that relationship, there could be more peace in the region.
True.
I think the war is going to get worse. I think the United States will and Israel are going to escalate in the next few days. Iran, in return, is going to escalate from its end and will um, destroy oil facilities and other civilian facilities in the Gulf. I think Israel will suffer more and more damage as its stock of interception missiles is going to dwindle faster than Iran's arsenal of missiles. And at some point, Trump, Trump's position is the easiest. He's just going to declare victory and leave. So I agree with you about that. I think it will take a few weeks. The best case scenario, a few weeks, the entire Gulf area is in flames. Oil is at, excuse me, $150 a barrel. There is the food riots in the third world because there are no fertilizers coming. And I'm not exactly sure who is going to riot about the helium, but no more party balloons for anybody. And that is the best case scenario.
I
The
love
worst case
nuclear.
scenario is a ground invasion and hundreds of American casualties, certainly many thousands of Iranian casualties, tens of thousands of Iranian casualties. At the end of this whole conflict, the United States abandons the area. Israel and Iran have a tacit agreement to stop firing missiles at each other. Iran retains control over the Gulf of Hormuz. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard effectively takes control over the country, and they race to an atomic bomb, and in a year they declare that they have nuclear weapons and that they will use them if they're attacked again.
You think
Okay.
Israel will let
And
that happen? I mean, there's the stereotype of they're 5 weeks away from nuclear weapons for the past 30 years. Obviously, the reason why they are, why I think that it's a true statement every time is because Israel keeps destroying once they reach that point. But
Yeah. I mean, because lots of people say, "Oh, you think that they'll develop nuclear weapons? They should. I believe that they should. They definitely should. But why would they do that?" Kind of thing.
well, I didn't. Well, they used to say that they're not going to, but we killed the man who, you know, decided that they're not going to get nuclear weapons, and we made it very clear to them that nuclear weapon is the only thing that will protect them against being attacked again,
Okay,
because
but in
obviously
10 years, when we're again attacking Iran because they're developing nuclear weapons, will
oh, no,
you
no, no, no,
then
it's not
admit
going to take
that they're
10 years.
developing nuclear weapons? Because
No, but Bar, you're missing my point. I'm trying to tell you that I'm no longer saying that Iran doesn't want to develop nuclear weapons. I'm saying up until a few weeks ago, Iran had no intention of developing nuclear weapons. However, this
really, you
attack
you
has
genuinely
changed
believe that?
things.
You genuinely believe
Yes,
that?
I genuinely believe, and I've heard very, I can support that. Iran has never wanted to develop nuclear weapon. What they did want is they wanted to create a deterrence by saying, look, we are, if you continue to be mean to us, we will, we are on the verge of developing nuclear weapons.
I
We
see
could,
now who's
but we're
the
not
mind
going
reader.
to. Now, it's not going to take 10 years. I think Iran is less than a year away from developing a nuclear weapon.
You
They
sound like
have
Bibi.
the No. By the way, have you seen the AI generated trailer, the Iran Wars straight out of Hormuz with Liam Neeson playing Donald Trump, and you've never seen
Oh,
the funny exchange there is you see Bibi, I can't remember who is playing Bibi, calling and saying to Donald Trump, Iran is 2 weeks from developing nuclear weapon. And Donald Trump says, really? How 2 weeks away are they? And Bibi says, they're even more 2 weeks away than they were 5 years ago. So
good.
I'll send you the trailer. It's really funny, and
It is funny.
unlike the Lego movies, it's not quite as blatant. It's just funny. I think things have changed vis-a-vis Iran and nuclear weapon. I think before Iran was very happy to give up its nuclear weapon. I think now, I think right now Iran would still agree to give up its nuclear weapon capabilities, development capabilities, but the price that they will take is not one that the United States and Israel will agree to pay. And consequently, I think Iran is going to be, has been pushed into developing a nuclear weapon, and I think they now will. So I think the war has achieved the exact opposite end from what it was trying to do. And while Iran is weak now, it will collect more money by collecting tolls in the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to try to influence. One of the things they've done is they said only oil shipments that were paid for in yuan and not in dollars can pass. So I'm not sure they're going to be strict about that, but they're weakening the petrodollar, which has been very, very important to the United States. They, after the whole thing is over, Iran will retain its ability to inflict damage on its neighbors. Its neighbors will realize that the United States is not in a position to defend them. Because if what will happen over the next few weeks is what I think will happen, then Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, all of them will see their energy infrastructure destroyed by Iran, despite the United States promises and protection. So they will realize that the United States is a paper tiger that's not actually able to protect them, and they will look for somebody who is able to protect them, and they'll find it with China.
I think that
Now,
you should like take note of how to make predictions. You have to like hedge your bets. You can't say everything that you think. You have to say like, okay, maybe this or maybe that, because like only one thing can actually happen.
He
oh no,
gave
I
two
did that. I
scenarios. He
said
gave a
I
good
have,
scenario, and he gave a bad scenario.
You get two
His
scenarios.
good
yes,
scenario.
yeah. My best case scenario is the world is going on fire, and the worst case scenario that goes along with the United States ground troops being killed by the hundreds.
I think I think that the principle, the libertarian principle, that government programs always fail is like a pretty good heuristic, right? Because the incentives are there for government programs to succeed. But I think that there is an incentive, like for instance, as exhibited by Donald Trump, to be great. I think that it's really important for him to be great, and I don't think that he'll allow that kind of failure.
I,
Well, I would argue that he has allowed the Iran war that is already a failure, but
People
we'll
have
see.
died.
Sorry,
How many people? How
why
many
why are
Americans
you
have
everybody so obsessed? 13 Americans have died, but why is everybody so and many more Israelis? But why is people so obsessed with killing?
died?
It's like the only measure
Whoa,
of
whoa.
how successful you are in war is how many people you manage to kill?
No, no, that's the opposite. I'm saying that it's not devastating because not many people have been killed.
Ah, but it's okay. Well, I'm not going to go back there. Tucker Carlson, just to finish, had a very interesting monologue recently in which he said power is not about being able to inflict damage. Real power is from being able to keep the peace. And the United States have demonstrated that they have lost their power because the United States is no longer able to keep the peace everywhere in the world.
I think
And
true, but
that
I think
is,
that the reason, I mean, they lost their power during the last few administrations, and now Trump is gaining them that power by showing that he does mean what he says, and America is able to project power.
but you haven't heard me. I said keep the peace.
Yeah, no,
Is Trump doing a
that's why
better
I'm saying,
job at keeping the peace?
peace through strength. You ever hear that?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, and but I can see the strength part, but where is the peace part?
but
it only
it comes
comes
after.
after you've proven you have strength. You
Yeah,
can't keep the peace with people who want. Okay, there's a war of powers amongst great men. Okay, great men.
Uh-huh.
Uh, are you great men theory of history or like a moving tides kind of thing?
I'm somewhere in between.
Okay, that's
I,
what I mean.
I I think they're definitely I let's not go into that now. I can see both.
Okay,
Some great men definitely had impact, Alexander the Great and Napoleon. On the other hand, the Industrial Revolution, arguably the biggest revolution in human history, was not the result of any one great man. Same with the AI revolution now, not any one great man. So I can see both.
Okay, okay, that's fair. So I'm saying societies are made up by like tides and forces of history and great men. So the great
Okay.
men who arguably shape the direction in which the tides move always want more influence and power to shape it in the direction that they wish. And there will always be great men, and there will always be people who want to influence the way society moves. And
Yep.
if you choose to go the direction of, oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. What we were talking about initially. Oh,
What
right,
was
whether or
saying
not.
It-
how
it- Peace through
Trump is
strength, and I said,
Right,
incentivized
right.
to
So in up until recently, there were no great men at the helm. There were like middle managers and trying to keep afloat the bureaucracy that feeds itself, kind of thing. And
in the
every
United
8 years or
States.
so, you see a great man coming up, and Trump is the current one, and he's
Uh-huh.
projecting the strength of that America still has, though barely, because of the downgrade that they had over the last few years and everyone else's influence becoming stronger and stronger. So he has to show that he has incredible strength and incredible influence so that to push back against other people, other great men like he or whatever. And in order to do that, he has to first prove himself, and only after he's proven himself can the peace come. So you can't be strong without showing. You can't be strong enough to keep peace without showing the strength to begin with.
So, in other words, you can't make peace without making war first.
Yes.
you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah,
Yeah, in a way.
in a way.
I
Okay.
like to
Okay.
pivot
I
for
think,
our
yeah.
last subject, right? I
Okay.
have a question for you. Dave's. Oh, I'd like to note this for everybody who's interested. The war is wearing on us. It's getting very tiring. I've been living with my mom. I'm not at the age I want to live with my mom at. But the upside is very, very big. People are tired, but they're willing to face a lot for a friendly Iran. That would be a really, really nice thing. So we're not going if we're promised that the Iranian regime will change in a month, we'll hold the month. It's no problem.
Okay. And if the opposite happens,
It would
so
really suck.
what needs to
It'll be
happen
another
for you
beanie
to
riot.
say what needs to happen for you to say in retrospect the war was a mistake?
Well, I mean, it doesn't
Obviously,
require much. No, actually,
okay.
well, if the regime stays as it is right now, no, I still think it made it good because like all the top men were killed, so that's a good thing.
Why
But
is
yeah,
it
it
a
would
good
be
thing?
really because I think that if you're doing really bad things, you should die. By the way,
It's trimming the hedges. It'll take a few years for the organization and machinery to move back into the same level of pace that they had before.
I wanted to say as libertarians, in a
Yes.
free society,
Uh-huh.
where some dictator controls over an entire population. It's like mostly
Uh-huh.
ANCAP, but there's also like Saddam Hussein's Iraq in the middle of it. Of course, we don't have the American army because there is no state. So,
Uh-huh.
but we understand that this big bad person is being really big and bad to lots of his own people. How do we free him?
Okay.
Do you think that I would always advocate that no, we don't have to have a war with the nation. We just have to Bitcoin crowdfund an assassin to kill the Saddam guy. And so I think that in terms of how libertarians viewed wars, I think that the last few, like the Maduro one and currently the Iran one, has taken an amazingly good turn from killing normal people to killing politicians. Do you guys
The
agree?
killing politi well, I I think you are premising what you're saying on the assumption that Iran is going to be like Venezuela, that killing the leaders has made Iran weaker or the regime less cruel.
Oh, wait.
You
I'm,
seem to
I'm not
care
trying
about the
to
people.
say anything about strategy here. I'm just saying, in terms of the way libertarians see the evils of war, one of the big
Yeah.
problems is that so many innocent people die for no fault of their own. And now the people who are
Yes.
dying, mostly, at least in the bad regimes, are the ones who are responsible for the bad things. That's a good thing, right? That's a good development
No.
in war.
No. 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 Bar. It would be a good thing if it achieved its goal. But if it achieves the opposite of its goal, then it's a bad thing.
No, wait, wait, wait,
So
wait,
if
wait, wait.
you
No, 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 no.
I'm
He's
not
not
saying
saying
that
this
it's
specific war.
yeah, I'm not saying even purely good. I'm saying it's better than killing lots of random faceless soldiers of that country who had nothing to do with it. We're just killing the top leadership, which is morally better.
yes, murdering fewer people is better than
Yes,
And
murdering more
murdering the
people.
fewer
yes.
people who are responsible for this.
Who are
But
more
no, they're not.
involved, at least, in the situation and have more to
Yes,
do with it.
yes, but that only makes sense if killing them actually improves the
No, no,
situation.
no,
No,
no, no,
wait,
no.
If,
wait,
on
wait.
the
No, it
other
doesn't matter.
hand,
It doesn't
You're
matter. Just
conflating it
like you
again.
said,
Because it
killing
could also
less
not improve the
people.
situation if you kill many innocent people. I'm saying that
that's
morally,
right.
just the strategy of targeting the top instead of the body, that's morally good.
No, it's morally better.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
as I said,
Okay.
I agree with you.
It's fine.
Murdering fewer
We
people
agree.
is better than murdering more people, but
We're
it's
in
still
agreement.
murdering people,
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
right? So, yes, it's
Okay.
better to kill fewer people. I think Israel is behaving better towards Iran than it did, for instance, towards Gaza. Because Bibi said, I don't have a fight with the Iranian people.
Yes.
We never said that about the Gazan people.
Because he
So
does
I
have a fight
agree
with them.
with you. Exactly. So I agree with you that what Israel is doing vis-a-vis the war in Iran, or at least so far, I'm a little worried that that's going to change soon, but so far has been less evil than what it did, for instance, in Gaza.
Yes.
So I'll give you that.
I'll give you less bad. I don't concede to evil.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I wanted to pivot to the other thing.
Okay.
Dave Smith
Yes.
on Joe Rogan said that
Yes.
Israel is being completely pummeled and are absolutely being destroyed, in like other words.
Yes.
Why did he say that?
Yes.
Because he
Because
wants
I
it to be
think
true.
well, we all say things we want to be true. I think the I'm not exactly sure what his sources of information are. I think it is definitely the case that Israel is suffering from damage that none of us knows about. So let's assume for a second, let me give you a hypothesis, okay? And tell me if you have evidence against it, okay? The hypothesis is Iran is focusing its power on military targets and sort of infrastructure targets. The, however, it's much more difficult, it's much easier to hide the damage to targets like that than it is to hide damage in the center of the cities. Consequently, what you and I can see are buildings destroyed in Tel Aviv. What we cannot see are structures destroyed in, I don't know, some airbase in the Negev.
That's true.
Now, I think Dave Smith is. I have I watch a lot of the same sources of information that Dave Smith does, and they do tend to exaggerate the the description of damage from what I can tell of what's going on in Israel. Having said that, it's really hard to tell what's going on in Israel. I can see that more missiles are penetrating. I know that Iran has attacked a lot of military targets in the Gulf. I assume it also attacked military targets in Israel. I have no way of knowing how successful they have been, and I think nobody does because of censorship.
So I can send you
But
some
I'm really
group chats if
surprised.
you want. Telegram,
Yeah,
where you can see documentation from on the ground Israelis. I feel like that's the best
send me
probably
that.
source of information.
But
Oh, by the way, that
Bar,
that should
I'm
tell you everything you need to know about Russian and Chinese intelligence about how good it is. Either it's not that good, or Israel isn't that damaged.
what? How come you heard Dave Smith? I thought you were boycotting him.
I am. I heard a YouTube response to Dave Smith. Of course, I wouldn't listen to him, and now I'm boycotting Rogan also, so I wouldn't hear him
Really,
either.
Rogan?
Okay.
It really bothered me that he said that about Israel because I don't think that the war destroying Israel is going to convince Americans not to fight. So I don't see his incentive in saying that, which I know is
I
not
think
true.
no.
It's
I think that wasn't his main point. His main point is that the United States has no independent sort of a central interest in the war with Iran. That the United States was dragged into this war by Israel, and that the war was, in retrospect, a mistake because the regime change is not happening. And for all the reasons that I mentioned earlier, the war is achieving the exact opposite of the goal that it sets to itself. But the
That's
most
why
important point,
if that's all those things he probably said, and I don't have a problem with them because I believe that saying it is serving his interest. That's why my main problem was what he was saying about Israel.
and said, I listened to the entire interview and I didn't even remember that point.
Maybe it
So I
was
think it was a minor point in the context of the like 2 hours that they spoke together. Most of the 2 hours, well, by the way, were about wrestling, not about the war in the Middle East at
okay.
all.
Good. I'm sure that Dave knows better
um
about that.
Dave.
He knows
Okay,
a lot about that
I
too.
trust Dave Smith's philosophy less than or his attempt at finding truth less than I trust someone like Brett Weinstein, for instance. And I don't know how you feel about him, but he had a conversation with Tucker, which was very fun. It was funny. Uh, Not to anyone but me, but it was funny to me. But Brett is what I call granola lefty. So he's the Maha right. He's the politically homeless 90s liberal. So those types, I think, just get certain information that gives them that impression about how the war is going. I also watch Tim Dillon, and he also constantly gives off the impression that his feed, his like social media feed, gives him the impression that Israel and the U.S. are very much losing this war. My feed gives me them, but also gives me the other side. So um, I know Israel is taking damage and it's trying to not show it, which is fair. I know that Israel is taking less damage than they think it is, and I have people on the ground, so I'm pretty sure of my sources and I'm not sure of theirs. And I think a lot of what their sources is basically there's a lot of soft power on the internet, and Israel is very weak on the internet. It's the amount of power that Israel has in the propaganda wars is minuscule because that's not the strategy that they were focusing on, which was a mistake on their end. But that is the main strategy of the Muslim world and anyone who supports all those organizations, including their partners, which is China. The soft power elements of the internet are basically very, very pro Iran. And that's the feed that a lot of people are getting.
Don't you find it surprising that, given the much greater sort of cultural sort of in that, well, that the pro-Israeli forces have in the United States, that the anti-Israeli forces are so much more successful in social media and sort of in the culture at large?
Let me
I
So,
mean,
explain that.
no. No, it's a misunderstanding of the mindset of a Jew. Not to be racist, but Jews are very liberal. You can see that in their voting patterns and their tendencies, and their mitigating cultural history is the thing that keeps them from being communists, basically. So they're very liberal in a classical sense, and they have a tendency to want to support the underdog and the weak and to prioritize equality. So a lot of their worldview is actually self destroying because it's been infiltrated by Marxists who suggest that power equals immorality, and they're the white colonialists. They didn't think of themselves as white colonialists until recently, but like they didn't know that they were helping destroy the white colonialists and that they were going to be grouped in with them.
Also, I
okay.
just want to say that Israel had a very strong lobby and incentive, and they had a very strong uh, influence over boomers mostly. Boomers really loved Israel, and it makes a lot of sense because Israel kind of grew up with the boomers. Israel was an underdog when the boomers were born, and then as they grew up, they, against all odds, defeated a much greater foe. And they've always been the pro-Western, anti-Soviet, American allies in the region, and the boomers really appreciated that. And so Israel thought that they could just live with a political lobby and just like try to advocate with the U.S. government with what they can influence there. But meanwhile, the younger generation, they have always seen Israel as like the big guy who doesn't need actually our help, and the fact that we're even helping them is because I don't like Israel, so why would anybody like Israel, kind of thing. And Qatar has really leaned into that with all the university funding, and also like it works really well with all the Soviet funding that was there over all the years. And probably Chinese. I realize today that I don't have much evidence of that, but it's definitely there. Um,
Look up
there.
Data Republic.
Hmm?
Look into Data Republican.
Oh, okay. That and American soft power has been really compromised lately. So like we have lots of soft power coming from the east and much less from the west.
American soft power was all wasted on its own self-destruction. It was suicidal. It was I don't think it's suicidal empathy. I think it's suicidal guilt. I think it's
I
white
just call it
colonialist
cultural
guilt.
Marxism. It's cultural Marxism.
Right, guys, I, I think I have to go. Bar, you probably should rest as well. I really enjoyed talking to you. It's been a while, and I'm really looking forward to next week. And I'm sure there's going to be more to talk about. I hope I'm wrong, but if I'm right, then you know, um, make sure you have a supply of gas for your car.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, I thought that would go a different direction. If you're, I hope you're wrong too. But if you are
Yeah,
right, that's good information to have.
Sure. Thank you. Good night, everybody. Thank you for
All
joining
right.
me.
Okay.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, guys.
Bye.
Bye.